Welcome, guys. Welcome back to the Bianconeri Zone for another live. With me today is a member. It's Dash. How are you doing?
I am good. Sean Ragazzi, this is a quick homage to Justin. How is everybody? I'm great to be on the show. Finally, I've been wanting to for like the past month. It's just schedule wise. So, how are you, Alejandro?
I'm I'm better. I'm better than the last few days. I would say my voice is almost back, so that's okay. The only thing that's bothering me now is that I'm glitching. I have no idea why. I hope it sorts itself out. Let me see. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it will sort itself out during their life. I don't know what's happening. Let me check. Everything is okay. But yeah, um, we're gonna talk about a few stuff, a few things. And I think that the biggest part of the show will be on Agnelli's quotes because he spoke basically for the first time in a very long time. I would say, like usually when we get knocked out of the Champions League and stuff like that, he speaks. This year he opted out. I would say he didn't speak after a game, so it's I want to say good to hear, but after the things he said, I don't know if it's really that good to hear from him. So we'll talk about him first. First, we'll talk about him. But the first thing I want to quickly mention is the Mino Raiola thing situation. I think that was the proof, in my opinion, that I would say journalism is kind of gone. Like there's nothing, like there's no how do you want to call it, like integrity, like it's gone. Like that was kind of disgusting, when you come out with that kind of news, you need to be 100% sure, like there cannot be a single doubt about it. And I think you can also see the power of or the power yeah, it's the power of social media. Like it went around the world. Belgian, even Belgian reporters picked it up and just without fact checking, just put it out there, and it spread. And then he tweets. He actually tweeted. Like it was a weird tweet. I didn't understand it, but he tweeted. So when people say, because someone in the chat the other day said to me, well, other day it was a few weeks ago, and he said, "You're wrong. That journalist said so, so it's the truth." I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually not. But what do you think? What do you make about the entire situation, basically?
See, in the U.S. we do because this is where I live, but we always have a thing with journalists and stuff, and it's kind of sad because we're all football fans. So for us, like I thought that, most football fans are more accustomed to clickbait titles just because, how sports journalists are. They want to try to generate a lot of the buzz just to get in their ad revenues and their likes and stuff. But because, we'll get linked to just a bunch of players just because Agnelli sneezes and everyone says Mbappe what? Or like even with
Yeah.
Mbappe and the zebra Instagram story that lit up the Guardian, the Sun, everything for about 2 days and nothing happened of it. So, it's a little bit disgusting just because they went to a point where it was a little bit too far because they're saying that, hey, so and so died and click our thing. And I'm pretty sure that just doesn't make sense. I mean, yeah, it was kind of interesting that Raiola kind of came in and tweeted it off, kind of played it off as a joke. But
Yes.
I never really was a big fan of the clickbait titles. And, I'm surprised that so many people kind of took it because I've never, even when we got the news in the Discord this morning, I was like, who's this source? I've never heard of these guys before.
Yeah. So the actual source, like the first one, was kind of decent. The problem is Tancredi Palmieri. I think everybody knows him. He blocked the account, by the way. If you, I think a year ago he blocked us, the main account, because we called him out because he was spreading fake news. He he basically steals news and he never mentions the source. Never. Now, had he mentioned the actual source and it proved to be fake, like it was fake, he wouldn't have got any stake. But he tweeted it out like he was a source. And then after he starts backtracking, saying I'm gonna ban myself 1 week from Twitter, I'm like what the hell are you saying? Like just say you're wrong and move on, and that's it basically. But that's who he is. The big shock of the day I tweeted out was actually people. still take him serious as a source. Like, I cannot remember. I don't know how many years I had another account on before Bianconerizone, and then I started Bianconerizone. So it's like 4 years now. I can never remember the time he was right on anything, like on anything. So if people believed him, then yeah, then it's like that's weird. You shouldn't believe him. But the actual source was kind of okay, and like you don't expect like a source to come out with that kind of news and be wrong, because that's disgusting. Like, it's weird. Like, I don't know who that was, but he's probably gonna lose his job, or he should lose his job
Yeah,
because
it wouldn't surprise me at all.
you cannot do that basically. Um, but yeah, so he's
And then
alive. Oh yeah, you
Yeah,
go.
and then
You go.
here's an interesting thought on that too, Alejandro. So there's a league called the NFL, if you guys don't know, the National Football
Yeah,
League.
I
So
watch it.
there was a player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. His name was I believe it was Dwayne Haskins,
Yeah,
and
I'm a Steelers
he
fan.
he su yeah. So he suffered an auto accident, and it was actually his team that tweeted it out because originally, like, when we all heard the news break, we're like, wait, no way. And unfortunately, he had an incident like this. So it was just for me, like, again, when I saw the Rio news, I was just like, it's not even his team that's kind of mentioning it,
Yeah,
which is kind
yeah,
of weird because usually
yeah, yeah.
usually they're the ones that go for it. So yeah, I don't know. I tend to take a lot, especially in the footballing world, I take a lot of the sources as a grain of salt. And for me, it's like, we always have that joke where it's like, if Fabrizio Romano or Romeo Agresti say it, it's true, it's true. But it's just a life lesson that we all need to know is just
I agree.
not everything's 100%. Always do your research.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and at the end of the day, someone a few months ago said, "Oh, but you tweeted out something that's wrong." I'm like, we mentioned the source. Like, we don't have sources. We never claim to have any sources. We just translate the news, like bits all over Italian news. That's what I do in the morning or midday when I have my break. That's what I do. I tweet it out. I mention the sources. Go complain to them. It's not me actually. It's not us. I just translate the news and that's it. That's all I do. So I don't have a source when people say that. But he's alive. But he is fighting for his life. So I hope he gets better soon. Because it's kind of sad. But we knew that he was
Yeah.
in the hospital a few weeks, like a few months ago, basically. So we all know he's not doing
Yeah.
well. But let's hope he pulls through. Um,
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as far as the players that are under his repertoire. So I wonder, does Raiola like negotiate himself personally, or does he have his team do it? Because you'd think a guy of his stature has a full-on main agent, but then he's got like assistants or sub agents
yeah,
that
no.
kind of do
Oh
negotiations and
yeah,
whatnot.
he has his brother. Like his brother, I know he does Pellegrini's stuff. Luca Pellegrini, like from us. Even Lorenzo
Mhm.
Pellegrini, I think. My camera's glitching out. I'm sorry for that. But and he also has another name Rodriguez. I'm not sure, but he has a team working around him. Like it's not him. Like small agents, yeah, but like he's a big one. So he has a team.
Yeah,
He
I,
has a
I
team.
would figure.
But yeah, like at the moment I saw when it happened, like when it happened, the first reactions, like the tweets on underneath that news was like, "Oh, what about Pogba now?" What I'm like, okay, like chill. Again, the news was fake, but like, um, but he has a team. His brother is one of them. I know
Mhm.
that, and someone called Rodriguez. I think I'm not sure. But yeah, that's that. Is the stream still okay? Because I'm getting some feedback. It should be back on now. It's YouTube. It's a slow day on YouTube.
I don't see any issues on my end. Anybody in the chat, just feel free to drop in a quick comment.
Yeah, I know Richard is complaining, but it is what it is. The sound is perfect on this end. It's YouTube that transforms stuff. I mailed YouTube for it, and they're looking into it. It has something to do with the transition from the streaming platform we use and YouTube. Because when I use a different platform, it's okay. So it's something we mailed. We're just waiting on a response now. But yeah, we're going into Agnelli's quotes now, because that was basically the show. He said a lot. He said a lot of things. He said some interesting things, I would say. Um, I didn't translate it everything because it was, I would say, in a half hour, an interview of half an hour. He also talked about like technical stuff, less interesting, basically, or in general. So I picked out the most interesting things. Let's start with the Dybala thing, the Dybala quote, because I thought that was interesting. And he said that basically Dybala is a great player, but decisions are made in the heat of the moment or in different periods during the season. He said it, if you ask me in December, he said about Vlahovic to Juve, he said I would have thought it was impossible, and then he said, and he ended this quote. So, like I said, or like we said many times on the stream, like we had an agreement with Dybala in January. In December. His agent, for some reason, couldn't sign a deal. So the club was like, I believe, in my opinion, was like, okay, we're waiting now. But then the opportunity arrives. You can sign Vlahovic. And I think at that point the club said, Dybala, 29, kind of injury prone. Vlahovic, 21, 22, rising star, not injury prone. We're going to change everything. And that's what happened, in my opinion. What do you make about that quote, basically?
So it is an interesting quote just because, and the one thing that really rubbed me the wrong way when Allegri was presented back in May, where he was like, hey, I'm going to assign Dybala as the center of the project, only for them to completely 180 it. But, when you think about it, if you have an opportunity to sign at least, and I'm underestimating here, but Vlahovic is definitely better than a top 25 player, and especially a young top 25 player in the world. I'd say he's maybe in the top 15, top 10. But like if you're able to pounce on an opportunity like that as a club, you'd be doing a disservice to your fan base and as far as your franchise. Because if you think about it, as far as top talents, we've got Chiesa, we have De Ligt, and now we have Vlahovic. So, I mean, it's one of those things where you think about it and it's almost like a no-brainer from the management. And then I think the conversation happened where the club is like, hey, we have Vlahovic. He's a forward. He is a stable forward, a big physical player, where it's like Dybala, yeah, he's not technically, you would say he's in the prime of his career because he's 29. But right now, the thing is like, Dybala's looking for that last payday versus Vlahovic, where you can get him on a cheaper deal than you would with Dybala, and you would be able to, I don't want to say squeeze out performance out of him, but you'll be able to get a consistent performance. Do I agree with the club on the Dybala, how it was handled? No, it could have been handled a lot better, but I don't disagree with the decision to shift over from Dybala to Vlahovic because as Juventini, we kind of have to take away our love glasses for Dybala and kind of look at it objectively, where it's like 2015 and 2016 and 2017 up to about, the Tottenham game in the Champions League. He was great. Like, I loved watching him play. He was fun to watch, but I don't know what happened to him mentally after, or maybe something happened to him where he just kind of steadily went in decline. And I think like the first red flags of it was when Nedved and Paratici at the time were like, hey, we want to trade Dybala for Lukaku. And that kind of like made me think about it for a minute, where I'm like, isn't this Dybala's team? Why are they trying to get rid of him? Because this was, I think it was before Sarri took over. So like, it kind of made me wonder. And then, I watched his performances thereon. I started to be a little bit more kind of objective to watching him play. And it kind of started making sense. And then like the season that really rubbed me the wrong way was when Pirlo came over, and it was the Crotone match where Dybala just came back from that quad injury that he got in August under Sarri, and he wasn't match fit, and he was kind of upset with Pirlo, saying like, well, why didn't you start me? And Pirlo's like, hey, you've been injured, and I haven't been able to get a full training session out of you. Like, what do you want me to do? And that's where I kind of was like, I didn't want to call Dybala a diva, but I think he let the hype get to him a little bit, in my opinion.
Um, I I kind of agree with all things you said. Oh my god, my voice is going. I kind of agree with a lot of basically everything you said. Um, the last 2.5 seasons, I'd say two, they haven't been great. Injuries. I think injuries are the main problem. The main issue, because when he plays, you can see he's good. At the moment not, but I think that's understandable considering the situation. But when he plays, he's okay. But like you said, like the club made a decision. They made a business decision. That's what they made. If you have money enough, let's say you are City or PSG, you probably keep Dybala at the club. Because it's no issue. Um, but 26, also because the club was not gonna say you're gonna get it. Like Dybala was not gonna say I'll take a 3-year deal. In my opinion, I think he wanted more. Anyway, and it's hard. Not it's not hard like in terms of I'm very sad. Like this is not how I imagined it to end between Dybala and us. Basically, like I expected him to end his career, quote unquote, until it's basically done performance wise and you move on naturally. That's what I expected, But the last 2 seasons, even like you said, the Paratici thing, I think that was obvious. But then I was like, maybe it's just Paratici, he doesn't like him, blah, 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 But then the last 2 seasons, I was like, you can feel it, it's going the wrong way, And when Romeo tweeted out, it's done, in October. And then December, you keep saying it's done. I came on the channel and I was like, it's not done. If it's done, it would have been signed by now. That caliber of player on a free at the end of a few months, you sign it and you move on. The fact that it didn't happen, like this is not Bernardeschi, or De Sciglio.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they leave, fine, you can replace him, but you don't need to spend 50 mil to replace him.
Yeah,
this is
and
different.
if you also think about it too, where it's like, and the way that like Agnelli worded it is kind of trying to be like, oh no, we didn't want to disrespect him and blah blah blah. And I honestly think it was like Agnelli trying to save face in a sense for the club instead of like the club saying like, hey, yeah, we just ditched him because we don't need him anymore. Because like if you think about it as well, so like Dybala refused the transfer to Man United for Lukaku, and then as well as I believe Tottenham, Juventus accepted, I believe it was a 90 million euro bid from Tottenham, and Dybala was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it. So I think the board was like, hey, even if we were to re-sign him for the purpose of selling him, he's not going to go because he's already demonstrated it multiple times of him not leaving. So like it was almost written in the stars per se when you think about Dybala leaving for free, even though like, we don't want to believe it per se, but I think Dybala would have just held the club ransom essentially because he's like, oh, cool, I'll sign this deal, but you're never going to sell me regardless. So I think that's what they were going to do. And then like the whole discussion with the contract renewal in October, I think it was just because like I think Arriva Bene and Carabini were like, hey, let's figure this out because I was 100% convinced, in my opinion, that Paratici and Nedved wanted him out. Whereas like Arriva Bene and Carabini were like, hold on, let's see what we get first, and then we can make a more informed decision then. And then we can decide, which I will give props to Carabini per se, because Carabini kind of like, it's a huge gamble. Like if you think about it, where it's like you're signing him into a big deal. So like you want to make sure, and this is his first, because he was a Ferrari CEO. He wasn't, the Juventus CEO or Torino. He wasn't another football club. He wasn't like how Beppe Marotta came over, but it was more or less of his first gig. So, I mean, you got to commend him from being able to take that initiative to say, hey, hold on, let's evaluate this situation, and then him pulling it back because, Dybala's technically a fan favorite. I mean, he's on all of Juventus's advertising, all of their merch. So for the fact that Carabini's like, hey, I'm going to X this, Carabini and Arriva Bene, I'm sorry, but it's interesting. You got to give the board props for it too at the same time, because like not a lot of franchises have the guts to like seriously sit there and just be like, hey, I get it, you're a fan favorite, but you're just not a part of our plan. Because you've seen it in American sports as well, where we have guys past their prime that we're signing to lucrative contracts just because it makes the fans feel good.
Yeah, if you have the money, fine, but we don't have that money. And if it's a good decision, like, yeah, you can throw it. Like time will tell, in terms of how will we replace him? Not him directly, but how in terms of squad wise, not swap like for like, because I think we don't need another Dybala. I think that was the main issue also. This comment quickly, and then we move on, saying, and we thought that he's going to be the heir of Del Piero, but oh boy, are we so wrong? I never believed that, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't either.
He was a fan.
I'm sorry.
He was a fan favorite, but it was not the same. Like the feeling, because Del Piero was okay. Obviously it was different, but he was big in terms of European nights. He was there, like the big time. He was always there. You can always count on him, you know. And in Europe, Dybala's performances, they leave a lot to be desired. Like it wasn't great. And people say, "Oh, Barcelona, Tottenham." I'm like, look at the numbers. Sit back, look at the numbers. In big games, he was injured. He had a red card. He didn't show up like most of the time, and that's why I was like, this is not Del Piero's hair, you know. He can be a club legend if he keeps on performing like that, and he ended his career, probably, yeah, you know. But now it's like he isn't, just because it's different. Let me see. Okay. That's that. Is the stream still okay, guys? Let me know in the chat, because today it's doing a madness. Olifon is complaining about we are talking about Dybala. Well, it's news. We talk about it. If you don't like it, skip the stream. Hop in when we are done. You know.
We had to open up with it because it was one of the first things on Agnelli's interview. So
yeah, and it's my channel, so I'm gonna talk whatever I want. Then he moved on. Basically, I think that was connected. Those two quotes, they were connected. He said resources are limited, and you have to choose how to invest them. In our vision, we have Vlahovic, De Ligt, Locatelli, and Chiesa. To make an offer to Paulo that did not match his level would have not been fair to him. He also implemented saying he is in a time, or like in a position of his career, 29, that he needs to get his last deal, you know, and we cannot give him that, you know. But then I'm sit back, I'm like, he's gonna sign last for Inter most likely. I'm like, that's weird for us, you know, and
so
that's weird for him also, you know.
I don't know if you know this yet, Alejandro, but there was some reports that Jose Mourinho was trying to pull him over to Roma.
As I saw that, it's going on from weeks now, but I'm not tweeting it out. It's like it doesn't concern us, you know. Same for the Inter thing. Like I'm not gonna tweet it out because it doesn't really concern us. Like they don't need to pay us. He's a free agent. He can do whatever he wants. But the main thing is, he said the resources are limited and you have to choose how to invest it. And then he said Vlahovic, De Ligt, Locatelli, Chiesa. Like he put De Ligt in there. I think that's kind of obvious, but like we are always sitting here saying, is he gonna stay? Is he gonna leave? You know, going off that quote, the club wants to keep him, which is no surprise, of course. But he said resources are limited. And then he went on basically saying, wait, I have that quote here. I don't have that quote here. Oh, then he said, we have a long-term project. We knew this year would be difficult, and having regrets for not winning at the end is a good boost for the future. So those two quotes, they go together, saying sources are very limited. You need to make good decisions, basically, and we have a long-term project. You know, Arrivabene said we have a 3-year project, I think he said. Yeah, he said 3 years. So the word project is coming back, you know, every now and then. So I'm going to keep them to it, you know. In 3 years' time, I've said it, 24, excuse me. I'm going to sit here and I'm like, that project stunk, or that project was amazing, you know. I just had my doubts. When we, like you said, Dybala, Vlahovic, we changed the project midway in the project, you know, a few months into the project. So I'm a bit doubtful. I'm like, okay, you have a project, and I know you need to, how do you want to say it, you know, make decisions and change. But at the start of the season, it was Dybala is at the center of the project. And then a few months later, it's like, nah, it's Vlahovic now. So I'm like, and then you hear things like Emerson, Alonso. I'm like, no, 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 like this is a weird project again, you know. Um, but what do you make of that? You know, do you believe we have a project? That's first of all.
So I do, and then I also think, like for example, some of the names that we're getting, like a Di Maria or an Emerson, or like kind of like your older players, are going to be. So like in the NFL, I'll use the NFL as an example again, is like they like to do prove it deals where they give them a one plus
Yeah,
one
yeah,
contract. So like I'm okay with that because the thing is like it's essentially like, hey, we'll give you that a little bit of a yearly high salary, but prove it per se, and then we can potentially talk about a new deal. Because the thing is like, yeah, like I heard the news about 60 million for Anthony, and like, yeah, Anthony's a great player, but for the price, I'm concerned because like why would we want to spend 60 million on something that we don't know yet? Because the thing is like, yeah, you can say that we spent the money on Delict and Vlahovic, but those guys where it's like they're gonna hit like that's almost like I'd want to say 95% sure that when you make that transfer you're gonna get what you're gonna get, where it's like I don't see like Anthony is like a world beater, or like for example Fratesi. I'm a little bit higher on Raspadori than some of these other transfer rumors that we're getting, but for the time being, until we know like something's like a for sure guarantee, because again, this is a 3-year project where we're not going to get all the pieces year one or year two. It's going to be something where it's like clubs that are like, we're not a Man City, we're not a PSG where we can entirely overhaul the club. Where it's like we'll get a big name player and then we'll get some bits and pieces and some chips to just kind of see where it goes. The only thing about this project that concerns me is Allegri's never been in a rebuild. He's
yeah,
never been in a team that's been through a rebuild or built from the ground up in the top level, because he came into Milan, and that Milan, yeah, it was like at the end of its prime per se. It was an aging squad, but he still had Rino Gattuso, Zlatan, a younger Zlatan. He still had Nesta in the defense. He had Thiago Silva. He had those players. And then when he came into Juventus, he didn't really build Juventus. He might have changed the tactics as far as tactical wise, but like for example, that was Conte's team, like Barzagli, Bonucci, Tevez, Pogba, Arturo Vidal. All of those guys were already there, and he kind of just man managed or made an adjustment because I'm not a big fan of the 3-5-2. I just for some reason hate that formation because I know Allegri in his first season he transitioned it to a 4-4-2 with a diamond midfield.
yep.
And the thing is like Beppe didn't give Allegri players like, world beaters or anything. I think the only player, if I remember correctly, that Allegri wanted and got was Matuidi. I don't think, and maybe, I think Higuain was more or less the board wanting to
It
do
was
it in a sense
obvious, you
to
know.
take it. Yeah. So it's like I've never seen Allegri build a team from the ground up, and that's what kind of concerns me a little bit with this is because of that. So it's like I get Allegri's a great man manager, but from a talent development perspective, like if we look at all of Allegri's teams that he's worked, so if we compare Milan and Juventus, outside of Pogba, and I wouldn't even consider Pogba a player that Allegri developed per se, because he was only there for, I believe, about 2 seasons, and he was already touted as one of the best when Allegri was there. We haven't sold the player for a really high fee. Like there hasn't been anyone that's come in and been like, hey, this young player grew under Allegri and we're going to buy him. I mean, I guess we could consider Bentancur, but even like I wouldn't even consider Kulusevski because Kulusevski wasn't, he was brought in through Pirlo. He wasn't brought in and developed by Allegri. I mean, Allegri just left him out to die on the bench per se. So it's like I'm a little bit concerned. I don't want to say sack Allegri because I think that's just kind of stupid at this point where you're not going to get stability. But like for me, it's like I think Allegri's a man manager versus like a guy that can take in a Sule or a Miretti or someone and essentially improve their game. He's just more or less of let me see what tools I have with me, and if they're utility players, or we like to call them a Swiss Army knife, where they have a tool for everything, they'll fit into the system. But I don't see outside of a solid defensive structure. There's not anything that screams Allegri besides good defense.
I you know, when he came in, he changed the mentality of that team because we like Conte's track record in Europe stinks. You know, he sucks in Europe. You know, He's not good at it because he's kind of scared. And the team, like we saw that in Europe, we looked scared. He came in, he changed that mentality. Like every player comes out and says that. He can set up a team like nobody else. You know, he always hit on his changes before. Now he doesn't, but I'm like, look who he's bringing off that bench. Bernardeschi, Keane. I'm like, it's difficult to hit at this point because they're not good. Like, they're average players. So it's difficult, to bring on average players and change a game. But I understand that he had Conte's team, and I agree, but he improved that, in my opinion, big time. We played better football under him the first seasons. Reaching 2 Champions League finals, we should have. I'm saying we should have won. We should have won one. But then I sit back and like that Barca team, the three up top, like how unlucky can you be? Just you make the final and you need to play that, or you need to play that Real Madrid team. The only thing I kind of blame him is that collapse in the second half against Madrid because I was quick. It was in the 10 minutes, it was over. Then you can see again he brought on Suraro from the bench, like pointless. We knew we needed to kill that game with the first 11 basically, and the starting of Barzali on the right, that was a bit iffy to me because it was working well with Alves and like it was working well, and then he changes again for the final. I was like, that's not okay. But if you would have lost that game close against Real Madrid, I wouldn't have blamed them that much because they were a better team. Like, let's be honest, they were. And Barcelona obviously.
Yeah, that was a generational Real Madrid team.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and it's the same thing with Barca because, like, everyone, and we'll say the small team from Milano will always like try to troll us about those 2 finals, but like we went up against 2 like once in a lifetime teams, man. Because like you have to face Neymar, Messi, and Suarez, and then you have to go from that to Bale, Benzema, and Ronaldo, and especially with the midfielder Cruz,
it was
Modric in them. Like, come
ridiculous.
on, man.
It's like Sian is saying both lost were, but the lost miserably. I don't think against Barcelona the 3-1 was in the last seconds. Like, we were attacking, and yeah, we were struggling. But when we scored that equalizer, that the following 10-15 minutes, we were on top, and I was like, I had the feeling we're gonna win it now. We're gonna just take it over, and we're just gonna close it out. And again, the penalty and all those things, whatever. But we conceded that last goal in the last second. It was done.
Yeah,
we were attacking.
And I think that Barcelona game was a lot closer than people give Juventus credit for it. I mean, yeah, we had that blunder that Rakitic scored in the first minute, or I believe it was the 4th minute, where it's like I don't think it was as bad as people think it was. Like, we were getting outrun by Barcelona. I mean, like, we can always do the what ifs if Alves actually got called for a pen on that and whatnot, but I didn't believe it when everyone said that, oh man, that front 3 absolutely ran them over. I'm like, they scored the 3rd at the end, and and that second goal, the go-ahead goal that they had, was just because I'm pretty sure the players were distracted waiting for a call, and Barcelona was like, hey, no whistle, let's go for it.
Yeah. But yeah, so he's gonna stay, but like I think, okay, really quickly, because is he making, like, I'm a Lakers fan, I like him, but I'm not an idiot. It's not good enough now. But I think everybody says the same thing. Everybody says the team stinks. So at some point, yeah, we play crap football. I agree. That's on coaching. Like, even with this team, we should be playing better football, in my opinion. But it goes so far, also. So you cannot, yeah, you can say the players are crap and the coach are crap. Bring in trainer X or Y. But then again, it's the same players. Like, it's 3 years now, same players, different coaches, same players, and we come on, say the same things week in, week out, day in, day out, so it's also player-wise, in my opinion. When you give him a bit more quality, it will get better. And this season has been a mess. Injuries, like, name it. Ronaldo leaving a few days before the start of the season. Yeah, a few days, literally. He played against Udinese, and that's it. It was a mess. Like, it was just a hot mess this season. I'm glad it's almost over. If we wrap it up, we 4 points. I hope we wrap it up in the next 2 games so I can relax,
Yeah, but
And
like think about it though, Alejandro. Like if we look at this team that we've had, like outside of Chiellini and Bonucci, and then like who's leading this team, like as far as a player personnel, like who's holding people accountable? Delict and then maybe Vlahovic. Like Morata doesn't seem like a player that would just be like,
no,
"Hey, let's go, let's focus on this," or like, "Come on, Keane or Bernadeschi." I
no,
mean,
no, I agree.
it, yeah.
But
I think that's one of the issues as a team as well is I just don't see the players holding each other accountable because it's like you look at the previous Juventus teams, you had Buffon that was leading the locker room, and then you had Chiellini, and then you had Bonucci, and then you had Barzagli. So like it's just I don't see like this new gen of players don't strike me as like the Grinta players of old.
I I agree with you. And that's why, like you said, Bonucci. I don't think, to be honest, I don't think the players take him seriously at this point because everything he does comes over to as fake to me. No, even that All or
Yeah.
Nothing documentary, it was forced. Like it didn't feel genuine to me. You know, when he was on
You
the
know, ever
table.
ever since he came back from Milan, like a lot of his comments just make absolutely no sense. Where it's just like he's like, like for him, the sky is blue, essentially. Like Bonucci would say something like that in an interview, and you're like, oh, okay, like sure.
Yeah, yeah. Even that exchange with Kies on the locker room saying, "Oh, um, we don't speak," and like it was just too much. It's a bit forced. I don't think people take him serious, but that's why I kept saying like at some point you need to change. Chiellini, like they're not gonna stay forever. You need to pass on the, how you want to call it, the stake. Like next one up, and the next one up, in my opinion, should be a player like De Ligt. You know, they're kind of forcing it on Danilo now, which I believe he's a leader. I think players do listen to him, but he's not the future of the club. You know,
Hmm.
people say, "Oh, it's impossible to keep the legs." I think it is possible. I think he's a player who would stay if you prove to him, "We're gonna build, and we're gonna build around you. You're gonna be the main guy, and we're gonna bring in quality year in year out. We're gonna compete again. You lead these guys." I think he will embrace that role because just that's how he is. He did that at Ajax when he was a kid, you know. And when you watch it, okay, it's Dutch, so I don't, you're probably not gonna understand it, but you can watch ex players or current players playing about talking about the lake at a young age, and they were saying like we believed him before games when he spoke. Like we believe what he said. You know, we followed him on the pitch, off the pitch. We just believe what he said. You know, and I was like, he was 18 at the time. You know, he was a kid.
Hmm.
And players like Tadic and Schöne were the captains before, like Schöne and stuff like. They believed in it. And I'm like, that's kind of impressive. Like you're born with it. You don't how do you want to say that, you cannot force it on a player like Dybala. Like he has the armband. When I watch him play, I'm like, you're not the captain, you know.
Yeah.
I don't get that vibe. You're not that guy, you know. But when De
Yeah.
Ligt is wearing it, or when not even when he's wearing it on the pitch, he yells to Chiellini and stuff like that when he makes a mistake. Like he doesn't care. His interviews are very honest, and that's why I appreciate him the most. When he comes out, he's very obvious, honest. He doesn't, paper over the crack. Like he just, that's it. We're bad. Move on. If it's someone else, they were like, oh, we will learn about it. You know, yeah, the first time, but when it happens, the second time, the third time, you cannot come out because he knows fans are angry. He knows it's a lie. We're not learning out from it, so it's pointless to come out here and say we're learning from it, because you're not. Like we're not idiots. We can see it's the same thing all over and over again. So that's why I keep saying you need to move on, and people keep clinching on. Oh, but Chiellini is good for the locker room. I'm like, I get it, but like at
It's
some point you need to break. It's done. At some point it's done.
Yeah, it honestly is. And it's like, because you'll see franchises that do that, man. Like, they're just like, hey, respect to the legend, or, we want to keep like the good vibes and stuff like that, where it's like, sometimes you just have to metaphorically rip that band-aid off to succeed, man. It's what winning franchises do. Like Real Madrid, like they didn't have a press conference for Ronaldo leaving or Iker Casillas. They're just kind of like, hey, next man up, Vinicius Jr., let's go. Like, I mean, it's just how these like those like bigger name clubs operate. I mean, I know we got to respect our ancestors as far as club wise, and I get it,
Yeah.
but like we gotta just like sit there and just be like, hey, we need to just move forward because like, and it's just one of those things where like one of the reasons why I love Delict is like, so it was in the Champions League group stages against Atletico Madrid, that slide tackle he did on Correa inside the box where he like nearly risked it all. I thought he knocked him out and he just bounced up and he's like, let's go, hey, let's focus.
Yeah,
Like that's someone like me physically as a player myself. That's someone I would play for just because of that intensity. Where it's like you look at like Dybala or even Bonucci, which him having the armband was a joke. Where I just look at those two and I'm just like, dude, I don't want to play for you. I'm just here to get my check.
yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Let me see. Thought some news broke. No, no news broke. Um, okay, so we can move on. I agree. I agree with that. I think Chiellini is gonna leave. I think it's over. You know, it's done. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with bringing in Acerbi to replace him because that then just keep delay. Just go down on your knees and like pray that he stays instead of getting Acerbi because that makes me sick. When I read that in the morning, it makes me sick. Like it actually makes me sick.
Yeah, I cringe, but I think we have a question from ZC.
Yeah.
So hey guys, I love the work you doing. Keep it up. Who would you like to see manage Juventus? For me, this is impossible to happen, but I would just love to see Jurgen Klopp just because of the gegenpress of the total football that he utilizes. It would be, a mountain and a half to get away from Liverpool, but
Oh, he just
I would
signed a
just
new
be
deal
curious to
till
see.
26
Yeah, he just,
today.
yep. So I would just be curious because, like, I'm not a Liverpool fan, but, like, so I've been trying to work on getting my coaching badges and, I watch a lot of tactics and film just to kind of understand, what's a coach's, mindset and play style. And for me, it's like Jurgen Klopp is just absolutely like a joy to study because it's like, he doesn't have I need to have a Metzala or I need to have this specific regista. He plays a 4-3-3. It's interchangeable where you can take Fabinho or Joel Matip and play them as center back if you want to,
Yeah.
because everyone understands the system and it's interchangeable. Where it's like, and I honestly rate him higher than Guardiola as a coach because I think Guardiola always like overanalyzes the game and is always
I
like
agree.
he's like trying to reinvent the wheel where it's like you execute because if you think about it, him and Klopp almost do an identical high pressure gegenpress kind of Johan Cruyff style where it's like Klopp keeps it simple, whereas like Guardiola's like, hey, let me try to like trick them by putting an offensive defensive midfielder instead, completely expose my defense. But in short, I'd love to see Klopp. It's physically impossible for that to happen. Maybe Eric Ten Hag, but like even with that, like I'm
I
still skeptical
I
on
need
it.
to see more from him.
Yeah,
Not that he didn't do well at Ajax because he did well, very well. But I think people are, I won't say overhyping, maybe Man U fans because they were overhyping Ranić with
yeah.
based on some conference
What
meetings
was
he
it? They
did.
called him the father of Jurgen Klopp and all those guys, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
I don't know, maybe his stepfather, but not the real one, I would say. But like
yeah.
that was a myth, He's an okay coach, but he's not a top coach. He never was. Like he's good at building
Well, yeah,
teams.
and the thing is like you can tell that Ragnick can't handle big personalities with this current Man U club, where it's like you have
No, he can't.
Rashford and Sancho all thinking that the sun shines on them. So Ragnick was asking Ronaldo, he's like, who do you think I should sub or what should I do? Like if you're doing that as a coach, you should just resign the next day.
Yeah, I agree. But Tanaka, let's see. I think he's a good coach. He has lots of potential, but it will be the job he has at Manu is it's not
Yeah.
easy. It is not easy. But
Yeah, yeah. Because if you think about it, Alejandro, is that if Ten Hag like either this is gonna make or break his coaching career, because like if he flops at Man U, I don't think he gets a big job ever again.
he needs time. Like in my opinion, he needs at least 3 seasons. To because the fans think they are gonna compete quick with Liverpool and Man
No,
City
yeah,
based on the coach. I'm like the coach is good, but that's those two are a different league, and the players it's not like it's a different planet. Not a different league. It's insane. But
well,
No, you go. You go.
Yeah, yeah, and think about it. Like Klopp and Guardiola needed at least a couple of years before they built their juggernauts.
Yeah,
So I don't understand the need for instant success. Where it's like Liverpool did it the more organic way, whereas like City was just like, hey, let's throw money until it sticks. But like that, and that's the difference between like, for example, Liverpool and City, and let's say PSG, where it's like there were like both of the owners of Liverpool and PSG are like, hey, let's here's the process, or I'm sorry, City and Liverpool are like, we're gonna give this, it took 3 or 4 years before they did it because like Klopp's first 2 seasons, he didn't even qualify for the Champions League, and then like he lost to Sevilla in the Europa League final, I believe his third season, and then that's where everything kind of got together and he started pressing for the Champions League. I believe it was like in
yeah,
2018,
yeah,
and then like what was it? We used to banter Man City for losing to Monaco and a bunch
yeah,
of random
yeah.
teams in the
That
knockout
was
stages, and
that,
now,
that was only
yeah,
Pellegrini, but even Pep, he lost to Lyon, like
yeah,
when we lost the same season. So um, his track record when he left Barca is not great. He made that final yesterday. Last season, he overthought it and he got exposed. Not against like a good, solid Chelsea side, but they're a better team than Chelsea and they bottled it. Let's see this season what they will do. American is saying so we give Ten Hag 3 years. Why the Juventus fans don't give Allegri 3 years to rebuild the team? Now I'm gonna say it's a bit different because the league wise, quality wise, is completely different. Like even this title race is kind of crap in my opinion, like quality wise. That's
yeah,
why there's more pressure on Allegri because it's not that quote unquote difficult to win the league. It isn't.
yeah,
So and we
and then
shouldn't be in this
also,
position. We're struggling, not struggling. Like we're fighting until the last day almost to get top four. That shouldn't be the case. Never with this squad.
yeah,
It
and then
shouldn't
also
be.
to add on that as well, Jurgen. So like you have to look at it too. So Allegri's the highest paid coach in Serie
Yeah,
A, and his competition is Pioli, who outside of like this last season with Milan hasn't accomplished anything. Simone Inzaghi, who quit the Champions League and Europa League to try to push for the title with Lazio, only to get beat by a dysfunctional Sarri's Juventus and bottle it at the end. And then, I mean, we can consider Mourinho. It's his first season as Roma's coach, but even then, like, I don't want to say he's finished, but I think it's going to be a difficult road for him because he doesn't have the resources of Real Madrid or Abramovich helping him. And then like Sarri and Lazio, like I'm sorry, I don't view I don't view Lazio as a title contender, and even with Sarri, I mean they might be a close second or third, and that's it. And then Napoli, I think we saw this weekend that Napoli can't mount a serious
yeah.
title challenge at all. I mean, as the old cliche hotel in Florence before they bottled it to us in 2018. So like the expectations a little bit higher because Allegri's proven. Ten Hag, I mean, he's won the Everdies with Ajax, but it's he's going into the Premier League, and
It's different.
there's coaches. Tuchel, you have Klopp, and you have Guardiola that are all rated ahead of him. And then you can technically throw Conte in there as well because he's won the Premier League.
Yeah,
But yeah, Ten Hag is coming in as an underdog versus Allegri, where the league, you've won the league, and I don't think, if we were to take Allegri on his best day, tactically he is better than anyone in Serie A. Maybe not the prime Mourinho that we saw in like
yeah,
2010,
yeah.
11, and
Of course.
12.
I agree with that. I agree with that. So that's, in my opinion, also the difference, like quality wise, like against who you're competing and stuff like that. But he needs a bit of time in terms of because you know, I saw, I see a lot of people saying, excuse me, they expect us to compete on all phases, on all fronts in Europe and stuff like that. I'm like, you speak. I will be right back. One sec.
Mhm. Yeah, and like I get it because originally when Allegri first came in, I was hoping that we could potentially challenge for the title and do decent in the Champions League. But as the season went on, I kind of understood where I'm like, dude, we've got nothing to offer. And like again, like the small club in Milano, like they had a decently okay bench. So like as far as player like gathering wise, they were a little bit above us. I mean, but talent wise, we were there. But the problem that I always had was when we challenge for all three fronts, we need to see like, okay, we have our starters, but who can take the pressure off a starter if someone's not performing? Like we saw at the beginning of the season with Dybala and Morata laying a goose egg in the offense. Who was gonna step up? Keane? Like Keane didn't step up, where it's like we didn't have that there. And it's like the same thing with the midfield as well, where it's like we don't have to step in. Like if Arthur calls a game, I mean it's just Arthur and Locatelli. Like I mean Rabiot, I forget he plays half the time, and then for some reason he becomes Adrian Vieira for some reason. I don't know why. And then same thing with Bernadeschi, where it's like Bernadeschi just was like, I'm just here. Like I mean the guy offers nothing, and I hate to be that person, but it's just we didn't have anyone to step in. Or is like when you look at that crappy team from Milano, where like you sub in Lautaro or Jaco, you have Sanchez, you have Correa. Like they're not, I'm not saying that they're top tier talents, but you have serviceable backups. Same thing with their midfield. Like you sub out Barella, you can put in someone else. You can put in a Vidal, just to give Barella an extra 10, 15 minutes of rest. Whereas like with us, we're riding all the players we have into the ground because we just don't have a serviceable backup. And again, there's just like not really anyone there that's proven themselves. And when you're consistently running the same starting 11 without proper subs or breaks, they're going to get injured. It's inevitable because, I mean, we play almost 60 games this season. So it's just, I think, too, like, yeah, we need the big splashes. We need the big players to come in for the starting. But I think we also need to start building our bench as well, where it's like we need to make those like 20 or $15 million transfers for a serviceable backup. Because, like, if you think about it, where it's like Liverpool and City, because those guys are like the gold standard, they have a guy that can step in and take 15, 20 minutes off, or they can give Mane, Salah, Henderson, or whatever a couple minutes off. And that's just something that we don't have. And it's like, and it's prevalent in Europe too, guys, where it's like all three of the top, or all four of the Italian teams that played in the Champions League, like we only have a plan A. We don't have a plan B. Like if our main starters get injured or tired, that's it. Like it's game over. Like, I mean, with us in the game against Villarreal, like we played solid for 75 minutes. And then, when we conceded that penalty, we couldn't, like, you can't do anything because there isn't someone that, we could sub in and be like, oh crap, like this person's coming in. Where it's like with the other squads, like you can sub out Mahrez and you get Bernardo Silva, and you're just like, what? Or like, for example, you have Gabriel Jesus and you can sub in Sterling. Like we just don't have that. And I think teams know that, where they're just kind of like, hey, let's just run these guys into the ground. And then, the last 10, 15 minutes, they'll collapse.
I agree. And that's what I've said many times. I know the stream is lagging, but that's not us. It's YouTube. Some reason, but it will sort itself out, and we're almost at the end. But I agree with you, the squad it's not good, and that's why I say people need to calm down, because we need to improve our starting 11, but also our bench. Like our bench is like, I don't know how many years back, let's say 5-6 years back, our bench was many times the difference maker. It was quality of that bench, or useful players off that bench. But our team is built completely weird, I would say. It's not built well. It's built by different coaches, quote unquote. It's Sarri, Pirlo, it's Paratici, it's whoever, So
Yeah,
it's going to cost some time.
And I agree with you because, like, yeah, and if we looked at all the previous pundits too, like, 2018, 2017, 2019, where like everyone's like, well, how the heck do we beat Juventus, man? It's like they have an A team and a B team. Because like, the season that we went to the Champions League final against Real Madrid, like left back, we had Sandro that was really good. And then we had Evra. And then we had, Chiellini, Bonucci, and then Barzagli, and then a promising Rugani. And then on the right, we had Lichtensteiner and Alves. And then in the midfield, we had Pjanic, Khedira, Marquisio, and then we had Lamela, Storaro. And I'm not saying Storaro was great, but I'm saying at least he could take a couple minutes off. And then same thing with Mandzukic, Cuadrado, Higuain, Dybala. Like it was just, that team was so interchangeable, where it's like, if you're a coach, you don't know what you're going to get. One day you're going to get a Higuain that's on fire, and, or a Dybala that's on fire, or a Cuadrado that was playing well. And then for some reason, and then when we switched Danilo into the midfield, or not Danilo, Dani Alves into the midfield, like, people just couldn't, compensate for it. Like, I remember the tie against Monaco where Dani Alves absolutely ran through that team, and they just did not know how to respond to
Yeah.
it because no one's ever seen it before. And and that's the luxury, and that's the thing too. Like, it's a luxury, guys. Like, we don't know that we have great role players until we don't have them, because it's like, you never notice them because they do all the grinding work, or like, they have less minutes and you don't really notice it per se because we're all focused on the Vlahoviches, the Delicts, the Chiesas. But like, having someone in there that could just do the dirty work for at least 10, 15 minutes a game, like, that works wonders for your team. And it's just, I think we were spoiled for having it for so long. And now that we don't have it, it's like, oh man, like, it's like, it's something that we're missing.
I agree. We know that, but that's why. It is like, let's say Deschilio, Danilo, like the contract possible extensions, because Edgar is keep bugging me with the question. It's like, you still have a problem with 24 with, excuse me, giving Danilo a new deal. I'm like, yeah, because he has a deal until 24. There's no need to do that now. Like, wait, you don't need to do it now. There's no need for it. I said yesterday when I did that live, I was like, imagine being in 25 and you look at the squad and you still have Danilo, Rugani, Bonucci, Deschilio. That's not good. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if you like those guys, okay, but that's not a great prospect, because that's 5 players I named, or 4. People say, oh, but you can add different players extra. I'm like, not really. They're 4 players, like 4 spots. There's only so much space. So yes, I have an issue with the timing and with the length of the deal and the age of those players. Basically, it's that simple. Like, Bonucci, in my opinion, has no business in getting a new deal. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he's
Yeah.
he's on a bit of a decline.
His calf
He is on a
yeah,
decline.
his calf is gone. His
Yeah.
calves are gone.
And maybe this season we forced it. 100%, because Allegri said that against Empoli. We forced him. It went south. But even his performances are like the Euros, yeah, but that was a freak of nature what happened with Italy. Like, it's one of those things, everything clicked, it happened.
Yeah.
Chiellini was beside him, he has no business in getting a new deal. I'm sorry. Like, people can like it. I don't think a lot of people do actually love him, or like, what happened. But like, at some point it's done. Rugani 23, it's done, in my opinion. You need to move on. You tried it out. You loaned him out. Nobody wants him. He came back because of his wages. Nobody wants him. 3.5 mil. Yeah, squad rotation, but that, in my opinion, that's also the issue. Keeping players you already forced out. Like, it's weird. It's actually weird. Like, I know it's a new coach, quote unquote. It's Allegri back. It still remains weird for a fan, in my opinion. But it is what it is. Squad players, but I want different squad players also, because I've seen them, and it's not convincing.
And your squad players can't be people on the south side of their career. It has to be a blend where you need to have, like, for example, that veteran player that is playing, that's taking the veteran minimum, or a low 1-year, 2-year contract, just for them to play. And then you kind of have to phase in, like, the 22, the 23, the 24-year-olds. And I know everyone's going to say Allegri doesn't play young players, but like, I'm saying, as far as like, we look at squads, like, for example, we look at, our Genoas, our Empoli's, our Serie A squads, where we can take, like, a player that, isn't a world beater, but he'll get the job done, and we can get him on those low deals, those low contracts as well. And I think it's just, and I kind of blame Paratici and Nedved for this, because I think they tried to go fancy, and they tried to take it in 20. They essentially diverged from what made Juventus those 2 years, and they were trying to go extravagant versus practical. That's why we got Rabiot and Ramsey, because we're like, oh hey, because let's be honest, at that time we were considered top 4 club in the world. So it's like, yeah, so then they completely shifted what made us work to do this, like, stupid Barcelona mentality where Barcelona even shifted away from what they were doing because they had that kind of an ego, and look how hard they fell. I mean, like they went from developing young players or buying young players from Spanish teams, putting them on their bench and building them up, and then they just went from, hey, let's buy Coutinho, let's buy Suarez, let's buy the Neymar, let's buy this, let's buy that, and guys, and I think, and to be honest with you, I think Barcelona fell harder than us. So like, even though like we're fourth or third in the table, like it's still like we're not in bad shape compared to Barcelona. Like Barcelona, like they almost went bankrupt if we're being honest here. So it's like it's a tough pill to swallow because we're Juventus fans. We demand excellence because for us, winning is the only thing that matters. But it's also one of those things where we go through those lulls. It's going to be a year or two, and then we'll be fighting back again. And, we're going to dominate, win another 9 titles in a row and go from there. But it is what it is. I mean, like, great franchises always kind of have that, that top, they lower up and then they build themselves back up again. And it is what it is.
I agree. It's just like, I think people are a bit impatient, because we won 9 in a row, basically. And we have the possibility of winning 11 years in a row in terms of winning a title, like 11 years in a row. But I think that's also important, like even when you're bad, still picking up trophies, it's bad. But if you, at the end of the season, pick up a trophy and then you move on to win the title, you keep that winning habit into the squad. Winning in terms of you win a trophy, not in terms of you're winning the games you should be winning, and especially with the players, like you said, at the start of the season, the start of the midway the stream, Buffon gone, Chiellini gone, like you need to start over. These new players, they need to have the feeling of winning again, and then you can move on, Oh yeah, you go.
No, go ahead.
No, I had nothing to say.
Oh yeah, no. So like, yeah, and let's be honest, guys, winning is addictive. So it's like for us, and even as a fan base too, it's a drug, man. When you get it, you always want more. You want to experience it more. So it's like right now we're just kind of getting into that withdrawal of us not winning, and it's one of those times where we just take the year or two for some self-reflection, just kind of and the club should do it as well. And I honestly think that with Carabini and Arriva Bene, it's going in the right direction. They've earned my grace period for them to see what they can do. I think this Mercado in the summer is definitely going to start putting my opinion towards whether or not they're good or they're doing everything in the best interest of the club. But I'm also very curious to see how John Elkann influences the transfer market as well, because I don't think he's spoken as much as he's been speaking of recent. Because I remember back then, Agnelli used to do most of the talking. So the fact that Elkann kind of stepped in pre-Vlahovic deal and as well as recently at the sharehold meters too. So I'm kind of curious if Elkann has his eye on this, and that means you have someone above Agnelli that wants this team to turn around, which is generally a good sign when your principal owner is telling you guys to, hey, let's turn this ship around.
I agree. We're gonna wrap it up soon, guys. If you haven't liked the video, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because I don't know when you're coming on, hopefully soon, but I'll ask you this question quickly. Now, I'll ask you 2 questions, but I think you will come on before that. But do you think we're going to win the Coppa Italia?
Do I think we're going to win the Coppa Italia? Yes, I do. I think that Allegri always finds a way to improvise games. So, like, for example, the group game or the league game against Inter, where we just came at them and started pummeling them with pressure, even though we didn't score because, it happens. It's football. I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to do it again. Just because the thing is like, and this is the reason why I hate the 3-5-2 as a formation. It's just absolutely disgusting because it if you have great wingers, you can expose your center backs. And I'm sorry, and I don't know if there's like Bastoni fans in the chat for the national team. I don't think Bastoni's a great defender. He's caught out of position a lot, and I believe he plays on Inter's left side. So if you're able to put in a nice speedy winger, if Cuadrado, he eats his Wheaties that day and has his speed, I think he could absolutely demolish Bastoni because I think he takes too many risks. I think, and also
really quickly, Bastoni is injured, so I don't know if he's gonna make the final at this point.
Okay, so then that works as true as well. And then like because Inter's right side, their right center back is who D'Ambrosio or I mean, I think the only person of quality there is De Vrij, but even their wing backs, I mean, Dumfries always gets caught out, which is typically normal. He gets caught out of position, and then I the only player that we would have to worry about is Perisic because he's just been the consistent winger for Inter. I think Lautaro has hot and cold moments. I think the games that Lautaro produces are the games that like someone else is being marked in the forward position and not him because I don't think of him as a big time striker. I think he leached off of Lukaku. That was the reason why he was really explosive that year. But this year has shown if he's up against, and if we man mark Lautaro with Delict, I don't think Lautaro is going to be able to do anything. I think the main thing that's going to be concerning is whether or not we have an answer for Brozovic, because Brozovic essentially dictates play. He's there. In the U.S., we call it a pivot. The Regista role is called a pivot. So like Brozovic is the one that dictates the
Yes.
play. He also dictates the defense, and he can also shoot. So I think out of that entire roster, I think Brozovic tactically is the most dangerous player. And I think Kulusevski was actually good at man marking him. I know this was an unpopular opinion, but I think the games that Kulusevski played against Inter, he held Brozovic very, very well. Whether or not, and I think this is also going to be imperative too. So I think Alejandro, if Rabiot turns into Adrian Vieira, I think he has the ability to man mark Brozovic because Brozovic
Yeah.
physically isn't that strong. So if you're able to pair him up with a player that's taller than him, you can cut him out. And cutting out Brozovic essentially cuts out all of Inter's fluidity because I don't see someone that can sustain Inter's tactical approach for the entire game besides Brozovic because Barella, like we can talk about Barella, but Barella's more of a he's like a traditional center mid that's more defensive oriented. He can shoot and pass, but his attributes are more or less of, if you look at it in FIFA, the motor trait where he just
Yeah,
runs
he
all
has a
over the
big
field.
engine. He has a big engine.
So, yep. So he has that, and I'd love to do the pregame analysis for the Coppa Italia with you guys on a live, so I can break it down. And I can study some film and show you guys, but I think it's actually a lot closer than what it is. I don't want to put my UV glasses on and say that we're going to win. I do think there is, if I were to give you just projections from here on out, if the teams are how they are right now, I would say it's a 55% chance of it potentially going into extra time. And then another, I want to say like the rest of the percentage would be us squeaking a close win where we score one or two and just sit back the rest of the game. But I'm not too sure on it because again, it's football and everything changes, and I don't want to be the guy that tells the chat and everyone here a guarantee so you guys can sleep at night and then it blow up in my face. But it'll be a lot more of a great game as far as it's actually going to be up to be. So I think we're going to be in for a real show.
Yeah, I agree. Like at the end of the season, I don't care how. I just need to win it. Also it's against Inter. Like I need to win it, and I don't care about the Super Cup. I've said it many times before, but the way we lost still hurts. It still hurts. I was invested. Like I wasn't invested pre-game, but during the game, I was like, yeah, I want to win it. And then you lose it like that, and I'm like, fuck.
It's a sour taste, and I think Juventus is going to go into it with a really sour taste into that game too. Because like the thing is like if there's one thing you can count about an Allegri team, is if they take a loss against a team that like it's kind of like a disgusting loss, they tend to punch them back in the mouth the next time they play them. So like especially with this league game being recent and the way that it went that it did, I think Juventus is just going to come in and just pop them in the face before Inter even realizes it.
I agree. Hassel's asking your name. His name is Dash. And someone said new mic. It's not a new mic. It's the same. It's a new cable. But that will. Oops, it's not moving. Okay. If you want me to buy a new mic, I need to wait for that. Yeah. So it's not a new mic. It's just a new cable. I changed the cable. It's still cutting in and out for some reason. So I need to buy a new mic, which is kind of sad because it's a new mic. His name is Dash. As you know, he's a member. If you want to come on the show, you can join the members club. As you can see on the screen, you can access the Discord group chat with all the members. You can get wallpapers, advantages when we do giveaways, and giveaways are coming for the new jerseys very soon. And you could come on the channel and speak, and I can buy a new mic.
Do you have one more question for me as well, Alejandro?
Yeah, I had a quick one. No, I had two. No, which one? Oh no, I asked a copy Italia. I'm completely confused. the other question I had was, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna quickly. You don't need to explain who with what position and all those things. How many players do you think we're gonna sign? And signing Morata is a signing.
So I'm gonna have an unpopular opinion. I think we don't sign Morata. I think we get outbid for him. I think Arsenal is gonna pay 35, 40 million for him easy. So I think he's gonna be gone. I think we're gonna do probably two splash signings. One's gonna be like your 70, 80 million player. And then I think we're going to do a 50 or 60 if we do lose Morata and Keane. So I think we're going to get one of those. And then it wouldn't surprise me if we bring in some role players. Like we'll have two big signings, but then we'll bring in some smaller players. I'm going to say this projected wise, expect Rovella or Fajoli to probably be a part of the team. It depends on who wins the competition during preseason. But I think Allegri already has his mind made up, whether we want to believe it or not, because we're going to have a shortened preseason just due to the way that the season's set up. So that's going to be a new player right away. It's going to be Fajoli or Rovella that's going to be joining. I'm not too convinced that Juve is going to buy Fratesi. I'm just not too sure on that yet. I do think Raspadori is going to come in. I think that's probably 50 to about 55% as of right now. The other signing is probably going to be a lucrative midfield signing, which is our big splash signing. So depending on how the cards play with SMS or Pogba, depending on how the club goes with it, those are going to be like your two front runners. And then we might expect something else. I would say De Jong is a wild card. I don't want to say that he's convinced, but he is a wild card. And then look at us as well as buying fullbacks from Serie A teams as well. I believe it was the left back from Udinese. That's very popular. I just can't pronounce his name. I'll butcher it.
Udogi.
But okay, Udogi. All right.
Yeah.
So I think he's also looking into it. I think he might be a good signing, depending on whether or not we have to face too much competition from Atletico Madrid, because I believe they want him as well. But I would expect one big signing, one mediocre. I don't want to say mediocre, but like a not as a world class signing. And then a couple of role players. I think that Juventus is going to go cheap on the fullbacks just because there's not really anyone out there besides Udogi that's like we must buy and spend a lot of money for. So I would expect some no, I don't want to say nobody, but fullbacks that will get the job done but aren't world beaters, because like we're not going to sign like a prime Sandro like we did 5 years ago. It's just the modern game has made fullbacks so critical, so important. Like buying an established fullback from another team, you're going to be spending more than what you spent for Vlahovic. So Juventus is probably going to go during we're probably going to look at someone from Empoli, Genoa, or anyone in the mid-table range, and we're going to see. As far as the defensive position, I think Gatti has a very good shot at winning a place in the team during the summer. Depends on how he performs at the camp. I do think that we're going to be looking at the Fiorentina center back Savic, or we're going to, depending on how Cairo plays with Bremer, he might be looked at. I would expect Bremer less than I would from the Fiorentina center back. I do like the Dortmund center back. He's a ball playing center back, and I think that's something that the team needs. Or if we pick up a center back that's a solid defensive center back, then it might give De Ligt the opportunity to play the long ball, because like guys, De Ligt used to be a midfielder before he switched as a center back. He has a very, very nice pass if you actually see some of his old clips. But I would probably, if I were to count the total money spent, I would say we spend less than maybe 150 to about 175 million total if everything plays out the way that it does.
Okay, you're more optimistic than me. You're like if we spend 170, I think we're gonna sell. You need to sell very well, very, very well, and maybe sell someone you actually don't want to sell, should sell. You know what I mean? But let's see. Like it's May now. Close.
So, if I were going to give you if I was going to give you a selling, I would expect, and I know people are going to kill me for this one, but expect McKennie to potentially be on the move to the Premier League, and as well as Rabiot.
Yeah, just because of the money, his value.
Yeah, because if Rabiot can string together some performances, I think that the La Liga is going to be interested in buying him. And then I also think McKennie is just buying, because let's be honest here, the Premier League pays an arm and a leg for an English or a United States player, because I remember when they bought Clint Dempsey and he was like the greatest US striker ever, and Fulham bought him for like 40 million back
I
then.
agree.
But yeah, so expect those two to potentially be on the move. We might get a minimal fee for Sandro, but definitely expect, I would say, McKennie, Arthur, and Rabiot being your main movements. I think Juventus is going to hold a firm stance on De Ligt, on not allowing him to leave, regardless of whatever comes in, unless someone's going to pay that,
He's not gonna
release clause. And I think De Ligt is starting to realize it. And I think Allegri and De Ligt are possibly having conversations on, saying that, hey, this is going to be you and Vlahovic. Like, you hold the back, Vlahovic holds the top, or Chiesa and Vlahovic hold the top. And I think De Ligt is going to be 100% with it. Because I think the project that sold him back in 2019 that brought him to us versus Barcelona was, I think Chiellini was telling him, like, hey, yeah, I'm on borrowed time. This is going to be you soon.
I agree with that. I agree. But let's see. Like, it's still 2 games. Oh, no, it's 5 games. But like, we need 2 games to wrap it up. Maybe 1 if Roma messes up. But I don't think he will. They will. Yeah. It's just I'm worrying about us messing up for some reason again.
Yeah, and then here's another thing too. If we do clinch the top 4 with the next 2 games, expect the younger players to start getting circulated in as well. So that's another thing too. So I know a lot of the fans are like, hey, when are we going to see the young guys? So if Juventus gets the wins off Venezia and Genoa, you can more than likely expect Mirete, Ake, and Sule both being put into the first team and getting more substantial minutes.
They should, because it's done. I don't care about the points. Our team is dead on their feet at the moment. We're struggling, so we need to rest them, because the Coppa Italia is not next week, it's the following week, the final. So you should have wrapped it up, so you can give the players a decent amount of rest. Like a good rest. But let's see.
Can I answer one question in the chat? It's from Eunice Matamaro. So he said, "Yo, why didn't we go for Gosens?" So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you too, but he's a little bit older from what we're trying to do, and as well as his price, because I believe he was 40 million as well. And the thing is like, Gasperini players don't tend to do very well outside of Atalanta. If you've noticed that, like, for example, I watched Leicester today, and Cristante only lasted 20 minutes before his legs died on him. But the other thing too is, like, Gasperini is one of those coaches that has everything like a tactical setup where it has to be a 3-5-2, and Gosens wouldn't really necessarily succeed with us. Whereas like Germany, I believe they were able to play when they played in the Euros. They did a makeshift 3-5-2 tactically. So when Germany was attacking and pressing, they shifted into a 5-man midfield and a 3-man defense. So like, because the reason is Kimmich is such a utility player that when they were in the offensive shape, he took in that role of a third center back, where you had Rudiger, and I believe Boateng was still playing. But for Juventus, he doesn't fit us tactically, and it would kind of just be a little bit of an issue, because we're not going to be able to find a tactical solution for him to play. So I think I don't see him potentially fitting with the group, and I think that's one of the reasons why the club didn't go for him as well.
I agree with that. We're gonna wrap it up. It was a good show, a very good show, to be honest. I lasted for more than 40 minutes today, so that's positive.
I was trying to bring up some more ideas so you didn't have to hurt your voice anymore.
Yeah, because it's almost gone again. Tomorrow, Mr. Dax, you're right, because my voice is gone, so I'm loving it. But tomorrow, I don't think there's gonna be a live, because I'm gonna record a podcast with Julian if he has his Wi-Fi back in his street, because his Wi-Fi is gone. That's why he's not on the last couple of days. If he has no Wi-Fi, it's a live stream. If not, it's a podcast, and we will be live back on Saturday for a preview for the Venezia game. So yeah, guys, if you're still in the chat, like the video, subscribe. Consider joining the members club, so you can come on like Dash, and you can call me out. Now Dash hasn't called me out, but he can. That's a privilege he has now. I want to thank you, Dash, for coming on a Thursday. Thanks for that. It's Dash. People keep asking.
Yep.
His name is Dash.
My name is Dash. It's short for Dashimir, but yeah, if you guys want to follow me on social media, I just have an Instagram, so it's just Dash and then Feza, and then you should see my face on there. But yeah, and I'm hoping to be on these lives a lot more frequently, guys, because as far as work wise, I was able to adjust my schedule for my afternoon. So now I should be able to tag along and give you guys some cool tactical analyses and also some banter as well. I know Dog Daddy Davide and JC in the chat, we love to just banter amongst each other. So that's one of the perks of joining the members. You get to talk with all of us and we just get to make jokes and have fun. So I highly recommend it. I've been with the member group for a while. You finally get to see my face now, but definitely, guys, like the video, because if you don't, because Justin will look up all of the viewers' usernames and he'll hunt all of
Yeah.
you down. So make sure you guys like that video. Like it like Raiola likes cheeseburgers, everybody.
It is. It is. But yeah, guys, again, thanks everybody for joining, because it was a good show. Good viewers. Thanks for that. Again, tomorrow, no live. Normally, if Julian is out of Wi-Fi, there's gonna be a live, and if not, we will be back live on Saturday. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Have a good evening / day. I don't know. For me, it's midnight, so day or evening, and then we will see you back tomorrow or Saturday.